There's nothing wrong with emotions in the right context. Okay, I've said this forever. Humans are emotional. Both men and women are emotional. It's problematic when people say, oh, guys shouldn't be emotional. That is, honestly, that's a part of toxic humanity. You could say toxic masculinity, but I see it from both sides. People say that, oh, it's toxic masculinity when we say men can't show emotions. However, I plenty of times see women really discouraging men from being emotional, particularly when it comes to dating. Women they do not like emotional guys when it comes to dating. That's a big turnoff for them. So, people can claim, oh, toxic masculinity, men should be emotional, this, that, and the third. Men should be able to show their emotions, but women are the biggest proponents of that. Women are the ones who are turned off when guys are emotional, right? And you could argue that's biological, right? If a man is emotional when he needs to be rational because he needs to make a quick decision, I need to get out there and, bring home some bacon or build a fucking house. I can't sit around and pout and be emotional. Like, that makes sense. It would make sense that women would be more attracted to the guy who's getting something done and he's stoic and he's less emotional. And like, that's an old school thing. That's something that is really, that's one of the biggest things that's really, really changed about masculinity in the last 100 years is that men used to be kind of stoic. Men used to be these strong guys who just went out and did shit, and they didn't sit around in their emotions, and they didn't sit around crying about things. And that has become a kind of a big thing. Now, how do I think about this? How do I feel about this? Fucking hell, you could make the argument that my whole channel is just me whining and me being emotional. And yeah, maybe. Like, I'm just talking about shit. But here's the thing. Here's the difference is that emotions are a human part of men and women. Emotions are a good thing in the right context. Emotions are very proper and normal in the right context. Problem with these guys who are not emotional, who don't show emotions, who are very stoic, although that can be very attractive to a lot of women. The flip side can be true too. She gets upset because he never shows his emotions. She gets upset because he's so stoic that he doesn't really show that much affection. Some women love that. Some women will chase men. I would say a lot of women love that. A lot of women chase men who are not affectionate at all, and they're never affectionate, and they love that for some reason. On the other hand, a lot of times women get upset about that. Hey, you don't ever show me affection. You don't ever really show me how you feel about me. And like, it's a problem. It can be a problem. The other thing is, a lot of these guys who don't show emotions and they're so stoic, they can be really cold. They don't make very good friends a lot of times. They don't have proper social skills, because it does take emotional intelligence to have social skills. You need to have some emotional intelligence. Meaning, if somebody is going through pain, or somebody is hurt, or somebody had some kind of tragic loss or something like that, you would need to have proper emotional etiquette, meaning you would have to be able to sympathize or empathize with that person, and you'd have to have enough emotions to where you can make that person feel better, or do some consoling or something like that. A lot of guys, I do believe that is a proponent of toxic masculinity. A lot of guys, they're such assholes, they're so stoic, they're so quote unquote masculine, that they don't even know how to do that. That if their friend is like hurting, or their friend is like going through a divorce or something, like, they don't even know how to be emotionally intelligent and console their friend. In fact, the only thing they know how to do is, because they're so like, stoic and weird like that, the only thing they know how to do is like make fun of their friend, like, get over it, pussy, or and it's not because they're trying to be jerks. They just don't have that skill set. They don't have those emotions. So you got to adapt one way or the other. We live in a world where not everyone is going out and fucking shooting deer, skinning it, building log cabins, and that's all the fuck they do. Like, 150, 200 years ago. No, we live in a very social world now where things are very social, things are very emotional, and you need to have that emotional intelligence. There's nothing wrong with emotions in the proper context, okay? The difference is, though, if we're talking about, because there's this old argument where people say, women are so emotional, and then women hit guys back with, oh yeah, well, look how emotional you are when you lose this video game or something like that, right? So it's like there is a difference between how men express their emotions and how women are generally emotional. The difference is that men tend to make decisions based on rational logic, right? Men tend to make decisions based on their own mentality, their own reasoning, and how they figure things out. Men figure things out logically, right? Okay, well, how do I go from A to B to C? How do I get from here to there? How do I do this? How can I put this together? How can I make this work? This is how men go through things. This is how men reason and do our thing. Emotions, a lot of the times, don't even come into our process of figuring things out. Okay, guys who are more emotional in that sense, where they're trying to figure things out with their emotions, those guys are problematic because a lot of times in life, a lot of things you have to do is be logical. If there's something you want to accomplish, you have to figure out a logical method to get that thing accomplished. This is why a lot of times women do not make good leaders, because women get their emotions mixed up into decisions. Okay, women mix their emotions into decisions, and it's problematic because you can't do that. You have to be objective. Women are subjective in the fact that they're solipsistic. They base how to do something on their emotions. This is why it's problematic to have a woman at your business, unless it's just like easy work or something. But if you're talking about figuring something out, making big decisions and things like that, very difficult. Women can be problematic in that sense because it's harder for women to be objective. I don't think that they can 100% not be objective. No, I think women can be objective, but it's more difficult. The reason why is because women, okay, tend to make their decisions based on their emotions. Okay, so the difference between men and women, one big difference is that men tend to make their decisions, our decisions, based on rational logic, whereas women tend to make their decisions based on emotions. Okay, particularly when it comes to interpersonal relationships, things like that. Guys will try to logically help their guy figure something out, or logically. I've had so many friends where I'm like, we're talking about a problem when we both put our heads together, and you can tell that we're both logically trying to figure something out, right? Oh, well, you can do this and that, and it's like, when a guy is emotional, it's harder on the other guys because we're like, oh, okay, I got to go into my emotions now, and I got to like console my friend, and that's kind of feminine, and I'm not used to that. So it's easier for women in that sense to be, and this is why they say women are good nurturers, because women are very in touch with their emotions. So it's easier for a woman to help her friend through an emotional situation. This is why a lot of times, guys, it takes us years and years to get over a bad breakup or a bad relationship or a bad marriage or a loss of something, because we're so not used to dealing with our emotions. We're not even, I think women are more skilled at being emotional. They're able to work through their emotions easier because they're more used to being emotional. And in a sense, it's kind of cruel because a lot of times women can really get over a guy very quickly. Well, I mean, obviously also they have so many options, but it's a lot easier for them to get through an emotional aspect of a breakup. Some people would argue that, but I believe it is. Whereas with a guy, because we're so not used to our emotions, it can take us years and years. So there's nothing wrong with emotions. That's the ultimate thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with emotions. Yes, we have that old stoic, badass, Western man archetype who is going out, and shooting the game and skinning it and bringing home food, and he can fucking build a house, and he's cooking the fire, and he's doing all this fucking shit. He's growing food, and like, that's nice, man. Like, I wish we were still there. It'd be great. Like, but we probably would only live to 40, first of all. Like, it just is what it is. But you know what? There's something in me, like that book, The Call of the Wild. There's something in me that, like, I want to do that shit. I want to be a man's man. I want to fucking, and everybody has the capability of doing that. I used to dream of going out and living in the wilderness and shit like that when I was younger. It's possible. It sucks, but it's fucking possible. And men, that's what men have done for millennia. Now we have these modern advancements, right? So it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being emotional, man. I think that it's okay to be emotional as long as you have the proper emotions. As long as your emotions are in the right context, right? And you're not overly emotional. Like, guys who are overly emotional, maybe there's something wrong with your testosterone. Maybe you were raised by a single mom and you don't really know any other way, because guys who are raised by women tend to be more emotional than guys who are raised by men, because they just don't have that. They don't have those masculine energies around them. They've got feminine energies, and feminine energy is an emotional energy, whereas masculine energy is a get shit done energy, right? So it's really different. But when men do have emotions, it can be extremely powerful. An emotional man can be very, very powerful, can be very, very dangerous, but it can be very, very powerful as well. Emotions actually can be a great asset. A very emotional man can be a great asset in the right context. It just depends on what it is. If you really want to get something done, or if there needs to be some kind of challenge to be met, an emotional man can really like I said, the proper type of emotions. Emotion can be negative or it can be positive. It just depends on how you look at it. Because so many men are so pigeonholed into this like hyper masculinity, alpha male archetype type of thinking, they always just take the concept that any emotion from a man is a negative thing. That's not true at all. That's not true in the least. In fact, that's really a dangerous, erroneous concept that hurts men. But I will say, though, on the flip side of that, though, a lot of times, particularly in this generation, guys they don't have the right type of emotions. They're emotional in a negative way because they probably don't have the right type of character, and a lot of it is they don't. Because I will say that this new age, doesn't produce a lot of strong character in men and women, not just men, but men and women. Because we live in a culture where everything is given to us very easily. We don't have to work a lot for certain things, or at least a lot of people don't. And in a way, our suffering is very not even comparable to suffering of people in the past and suffering of people in countries that aren't as rich as ours. We've got it easy in a lot of ways, right? And because of that, yes, there can be a lot of spoiled, young people, particularly young people, because usually by the time you hit 30 or 40, you're not spoiled anymore, because real life hits you and you're like, ah, shit, I gotta actually buckle down and work, or you just commit suicide or whatever the fuck, right? And you're not around anymore anyways. Yeah, a lot of times guys are emotional when we should be more stoic, particularly when it comes to relationships. Like, you gotta be careful if you're too emotional in a relationship. But that goes without saying. Everybody knows that at this point, because it's part of every fucking PUA and dating guru out there. Everybody's saying that, right? But at the same time, you should show proper emotions towards your girl if you can at the right point. Obviously, she's not going to be attracted to an overly emotional guy at the very beginning if he's very needy. But as time goes on, you should show more emotions in a limited way. Show a little bit. I say like 90-10 or 80-20, 85-15, something like that. Like, show a little bit of emotion here and there, show a little bit of affection here and there, but you can't do too much, because if you do too much, then she's going to be turned off. That's just kind of basic. And that's the advice to men. But on the flip side, for women, a lot of times women tend to be logical when they should be emotional. Women, because feminism teaches women to be more masculine, and they act like that's a good thing. And feminism teaches women to compete with men, and they act like that's a good thing. Women should not be competing with men. Women should be complementing men. Women should be helping men, and men should be helping women. It's not one way or the other. There should be a balance. There's an imbalance when we have things like chivalry, because you get these stupid ass white knights who think, oh, I've always got to help women, and that's really an insult to women. And a lot of women just take advantage and they manipulate these guys for whatever their goal is. There needs to be a balance, right? So a lot of times these days, women tend to be more logical when they should be emotional. It's okay for you to act feminine if you're a female. It's okay to act masculine if you're a male. But we just don't know how to do it anymore. We don't have any good role models anymore, because everybody's, barely anybody is really fulfilling classic roles like they used to. And you could argue that some of the roles were pretty limiting, maybe. But I used to hear this all the time growing up. Women would always say, oh, you need to be in touch with your feminine side. What do you mean? First of all, what does that mean? Are you talking about my emotions? Is that what you're talking about? Like, what are you talking? Because men don't have a feminine side. We might have emotions, and if you think that is feminine, then you're wrong. Emotions are not strictly feminine. Emotions are human. Okay, emotions are human. But that sounds like propaganda. That sounds like feminist brainwashing. Really, a lot of times I think they say that because they just want men to start acting like women, because they have this. Because really, modern feminism is it's a cult of superiority, right? That's all it is. It's a supremacist group, really. They're just trying to make everything female and everything feminine so that they can rule, because they love everything feminine. And unless it comes to sex and relationships, then they crave the masculine, because this is what women want. Women crave masculinity. It's sexual. Women sexually crave masculinity, just like men sexually crave femininity. We crave that motherly, fertile, feminine essence, right? That's part of our sexuality, a large part of our sexuality, whereas women crave masculinity. So actually modern, and I should say modern and radicalized feminism, because it's the same thing. Modern feminism is radicalized. Sorry, it just is. When it tears down masculinity, it's actually shooting itself in the foot. This is the insidious sickness of modern radical feminism, is that by tearing down masculinity and hating men, they actually hurt themselves, because men and women really complement each other. They're supposed to complement each other in a proper way, right? They're supposed to uplift each other, and really they couple well together. That's what we're supposed to do. This is why men and women are supposed to come together. But when you have something as insidious as feminism, which teaches women to really hate men based on lies that are not true, okay, then you have a real dilemma. So a practical example of women being logical when they should be emotional, and emotional when they should be logical, is when she's got the hots for a bad boy, right? She should be logical in that sense. This guy is not good for me. Like, he obviously is a player. He's just going to fuck me and leave me, and it's obvious, and I know that, but my biology is saying, oh, I want to fuck this guy because he's so masculine. He's so stoic and masculine, and he doesn't need me, and he's in my hypergamy is going crazy, because I know all the girls want to fuck him, because look at, oh, he's got this leather jacket. He's got these boots, and he's just such a hot guy, and but she knows in her mind, her logical mind, she's like, I know this guy's not good for me. He's not going to stick around. He's just going to fuck me and leave me. Okay. That's when she should be logical, but she's not. She's emotional because people are not in control of their lower self, their lower emotions. So she's saying, oh, I know this guy isn't good for me, but I'm going to, so what she should say is I'm going to ignore my emotions and find someone else. But instead, she sleeps with him, right? So that's a good example of, kind of how backwards things are. And again, even the modern radical feminism makes things backwards like that, right? It makes things backwards like that, in the sense that it teaches women to be more masculine. Oh, be more assertive, be more dominant. And those things are not attractive. Men do not want assertive, dominant women because those are masculine traits. Men are not attracted to that. So women wonder, I don't understand. I'm 35 and I've been searching for the right guy for so long because you've been taught wrong. No one taught you how to be feminine. No one taught you how to be submissive to a man. No one taught you how to, and it's not even, I don't know if submissive is even the right word, but women react a certain way to masculinity. They are very attracted to masculinity. And there's something that is, maybe the better word is compliant. It's crazy how this phenomenon actually works, which is why relationships where it's like 50-50 or even where the woman kind of runs the show, they're really uncomely. They're not really harmonious relationships, because really it should be the other way around. The man should be leading slightly. It's a fine line, because you don't want the man to be so dominant that he's just overbearing and overpowering the relationship. I've seen that too. But there's a bond, there's a oneness between the two. There's a togetherness, and it's almost like a team. But yet the man you could just tell that he's got it's, I don't know how to put it, but he's leading. But it's not like he's leading, but not in a dominant dictator type of way, which I have seen, and that's not right either, right? That's too much. And oftentimes when that happens, the woman kind of subconsciously rebels or emotionally rebels, and you can see it. You can see that she has resentment towards him. But when there's a copacetic oneness, but yet the man is leading, there's just a harmony in it, and there's a beauty to it, where the man is masculine enough to lead, but he's still sensitive enough to take her along with him. It's a rare thing, but I've seen it. But a lot of times with these women who are single, they're 35, 40, and they're like, I don't understand. I'm accomplished, and we saw this with Tomi Lahren, right? When she said all men are trash and that whole debacle. Like, what she stated was, oh, I'm accomplished and all my friends are accomplished, and they all say men are trash. Well, yeah, because you guys are ambitious, assertive, dominant, strong women. You're basically men for all intents and purposes. This is a new phenomenon. Women never historically have not done. I mean, this is what feminism accomplished. And okay, you got your freedom, you got your workforce equality, whatever. And now marriage rates are dropping because men are not interested in career women. Men are not attracted to that. We don't want another dude living with us, basically, right? We don't want to marry a dude who has a career, and it's like, no, I want a good woman, I want a nice wife, and I don't want a tool, I don't want a slave. I want somebody who's going to work with me, and we can be copacetic together, not somebody who's going to compete with me or somebody who's going to be as ambitious as me per se. I'm not really looking for that. I want somebody to help me do better and help us do better, and I'm helping us do better, and we kind of work together like that. Now, whether or not she has a job or a career, whatever, but the fact is that a lot of these career women, they have dominant male masculine traits. They're so ambitious, and they don't even have time. They're so used to being logical, they don't even have time to be feminine. They don't even have time to have emotions anymore, right? It's weird, man. It's just weird. But this is the reality, and this is what's happening. This is why people aren't getting married anymore, man. This is part of it. This is part of why women are not finding the right type of men, because they're not the right type of, they're not even women anymore. They're, for all intents and purposes, they're men, you know? They're very masculine. They're assertive, they're ambitious, they're dominant, they're aggressive, they're competitive. Those are all masculine traits. Yeah, this is what modern feminism is teaching these women. This is what our modern society is teaching these women to be. It's really a messed up thing. But anyway, in the right context, emotions are not wrong. They're not bad. It's just they have to be under control, and they have to be displayed in the right context. Emotions in the right context are perfectly fine for men and women, okay? But a lot of times it's backwards. A lot of times men are too emotional when they should be more rational. And a lot of times women are too rational when they should be more emotional. And you have to understand what proper emotions are. You have to understand what proper rationality is. It has to be towards the right thing. It has to be towards the righteous thing. And this is why I strongly emphasize, and it's something that I've always talked about, wholesome values, actual morals, actual ethics. You have to have an ethical, moral, value-based foundation in order to have a proper inner being. And by inner being, I mean your mind, the way you think, your emotions, the way you deal with emotions, and how you decide things, what your will is, your decisions, the decisions that you make. All this is what make up a human being: the mind, the emotion, and the will. This is what makes up the human soul. Okay? There's nothing wrong with those three aspects: the mind, the emotion, and the will. There's nothing wrong with those under the proper context. But if today's world is so messed up, it's so damaged, and it so damages people that they have overworking emotions, overworking minds. This is why people have mental breakdowns. This is why people are so caught up in anxiety. This is why people are so stressed out, because their minds are overworking. Their emotions are overworking. Their emotions have been poisoned, by this toxic world, all the toxic music, all the toxic movies. The mind is corrupted with traumatic events that you might not even have gone through. You just might just have watched a traumatic movie. Don't watch bad movies. Don't watch horror movies. Don't watch murder movies. That shit poisons your mind. It poisons your soul. Don't watch that shit, man. We're so filled with this toxic crap that we put in our heads, we put in our soul, that our minds and our emotions are just warped. And it took me a long time to realize that was my problem. Like when I was younger, like I had PTSD and all this kind of crazy shit from traumatic events, things that happened to me. And it's like what you put in your soul, what you put in your body will damage you, and things that you experience and go through, it can damage these functions of our soul. Right? So we have to have a proper emotion. We have to have a normal emotion and a normal, rational mind. And this is, really what makes up a good charactered man. This is what really makes up, if you really want to have a good character, you have to figure out how to apply these things in the right context. How do I apply my rationale, my logic in the right context? How do I apply my emotion when it's needed? When am I emotional and when am I logical? When am I doing this type of emotion? When am I doing that type of emotion? When am I doing that type of logic? When am I doing this type of reasoning? And that's part of what makes up a wise man, is he knows when to do certain things. You got to be able to control your smiles and cries, man. Just like it said in Training Day, learn how to control your smiles and cries. Learn when to apply certain emotions, when to apply certain logic and things like that. And that's part of becoming a man. You can't just be 100% stoic all day long. And you go to YouTube and you watch these channels on stoicism and like how to become more stoic over everything. It's like, how do you have any kind of happiness, man? You have to be able to do it. And I'm just talking like it's not we mess up, or we're too emotional often, or we're too this or too that. It's good to have a balance. What I don't like is when a guy is just, he has no emotion. He just shows no emotion ever. He's not emotional, and it's like, okay, I get it, man, but sometimes you gotta show emotion. Sometimes you gotta, or when a guy's just totally emotional, it's like, hey man, back up a little bit. Be more stoic. Be more rational. Don't be so emotional. Like, there has to be a balance. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Appreciate you listening. Jay Lee Northwest Podcast. Peace.